All right, welcome to the Florida Folk Show podcast. I'm Tim Valley, and I'm joined here today with Tex Carter and Kay Carter from the West Klosterman Preserve Group. Is that correct?
That's
Good.
correct. Thank
All
you.
right. How y'all doing this morning? Or I guess it's the afternoon now.
We're doing great.
Yeah.
It is afternoon, Tim, but it's a good day.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you guys have fun during the radio show?
That was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I really like the music too.
Yeah, no, they do a great job. So why don't you start off just giving a little background on the group, how you guys got started, and what y'all are trying to do.
Let's start with what we're up to first, and that'll help grab attention maybe, and people will listen to the rest of the description that we put out. The West Klosterman Preservation Group was started about 2 years ago to save a 14-acre native habitat that is in northern Pinellas County. It sits across the fence from a 76-acre natural preserve that's owned by the county called the Mariners Point Management Area. Together, these guys are a 90-acre ecosystem that have essentially existed untouched for about 40 years. Nobody's been there. It's a preserve. The school board owns the 14 acres that we're dealing with, and the school board bought it 30 years ago to build a school. They didn't find that they needed to build a school there for this part of the county, and so they just let it lay fallow for 30 years. And then about 2 years ago, they decided they wanted to sell it to raise money for the school board budget. They put it up for sale without announcing it to anybody in the county who's interested in preservation. And it was bid on and chased by developers who wanted to essentially buy it, bulldoze it, and put up high-density condominium living there where it had been native preserved for 100 years or more.
Yeah.
So our group was formed to try to first work with the school board and convince them that we should preserve the property. It took us about a year to get to that ruling, and the school board did decide that we had enough credibility, they would do business with us, and so they have given us essentially a year to raise the money to buy the property. And that's where we are today, is we are starting our fundraising campaign in a way that will help us raise the $3 million price that the school board wants for the property. And the developers had offered $3.3 million, so the school board's given us a little discount.
Yeah.
Okay, but they still want to raise the money because this money goes into education. And if it doesn't come from sale of the property, it'll come from taxpayers. So it's got to come from somewhere.
Absolutely. So you guys recently had a $250,000 donation. Is that correct?
Yes, Jeffrey Ephraimson from Indiana used to come to Tarpon Springs when he was a youngster and loves the area, so they vacationed here years. He was here several months ago and heard about our project, gave us a call, and long story short, he has decided to put up a $250,000 closing grant. So when we've just about finished our campaign, he will put in the final $250,000. And he wanted to do it that way, really, to be able to say, look, here's somebody from Indiana interested in this. The local people should step up now and give the extra money that is needed to complete this project.
So if people do want to donate some money to the cause, where can they go?
They have two options, really. Pinellas Community Foundation has partnered with us, and they have been in business for over 50 years.
Yeah, they're amazing. They did a great job helping preserve the
That's
Gladys
right.
Douglas
They worked
property.
with Gladys Douglas, and so they have decided that they want to go into the environmental area, and they have taken on us as their second project or their first project, depending on whether you want to count Gladys Douglas as first, and I would call it their first project.
Yeah.
So if people want to give large amounts, they can contact Pinellas Community Foundation, PCF, and arrange with them to do a pledge so that people are, if you want to give a large amount, but you're like, well, what happens if you don't raise the full money? Then just do it in pledge form.
Yeah.
And they are very aware of how to do that. So they will work with you. So just contact Lee Davis at PCF and you'll be able to work on that. You can also go to our website, wkpreserve.com. We have a Donate Now button there. and you can donate through PayPal. And the money's we are a totally volunteer organization.
Mm-hmm.
So any money raised either goes into promoting, making the money to do the project, or it goes into the actual sales price of the project. So there's really no fear in donating because your money's not going to anybody's salaries, it's not going into anybody's pocket. And we are a 501c3 corporation, which means that legally we cannot take that money.
Yeah.
If for some reason in the future, 20, 30 years from now, we fail to exist, that money has to go into another 501c3. So there really is no problem with donating. There's not an issue there.
Yeah, Kay mentioned the 20 or 30-year vision. The folks who are associated with WK Preservation Group today actually do want to continue to do preservation projects in Pinellas County past this one. So if this one is successful, and we want it to be successful, then we will be looking for other similar parcels where a group that organizes and helps to save that parcel will continue to preserve property in Pinellas County for the people of the county in the future.
Oh, very cool. So, can you tell me a little bit about the ecology of the property? What all is there, and why should it be preserved?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
The property is it's coastal sandhill property largely. It is virgin forest. It's interesting. The property itself was originally the home site for Fred Howard. People who know Pinellas County know Howard Park.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the Fred Howard that the park was named after. And he was something of a benefactor for the county for many, many years. And so his original farmhouse was actually on this property, but it's gone.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so there's a little bit of evidence of the farmhouse and the people who lived there way back in the trees. Okay, but when you get outside of the farmhouse area, it's native longleaf pine, live oak, sand pine. It's in a sandhill that runs from where we are in Tarpon Springs all the way down through Pinellas County to St. Petersburg. It's a sandhill ridge that is there and is part of a geological formation that's rare in Florida and
Disappearing in Pinellas County. For
disappearing
sure.
to under the bulldozers. We have on the property, we have seen lots of gopher tortoises. We know that we've counted more than 50 holes, and right now the baby tortoises are digging new holes because mama's turned them loose.
Absolutely.
So gopher tortoises. We have osprey that live in nests there. There are a number of small foxes. We've seen a lot of different animals. Most of the animals that are there are not threatened or endangered, except for the gopher tortoise, which is protected.
Absolutely.
And there's a pileated woodpecker species that's there as well that is also protected. In addition to the animals, there are a lot of plant species that are protected and endangered. So we've got the giant air plant, which is an endangered species. It's a huge bromeliad that grows up in the oak trees, and it's beautiful, but they are endangered in Florida.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the time people focus on just the endangered and protected animals and don't think so much about the rare and endangered plant species.
That's right. And then we have Florida scrub, or Florida rosemary scrub, which is also disappearing in Florida.
Yeah, that was one of the big things with the Douglas property.
Exactly.
It's one of the last remaining rosemary scrubs in the county. I mean, the county used to be covered with that, and now it's almost all gone.
It's almost all gone.
Very knowledgeable, Tim. Good job.
Florida scrub is kind of an interesting plant, too, because it needs an undisturbed area. So that's why it's disappearing, because it cannot survive when there's a lot of disruption to its habitat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Environmentally, and I'm glad you brought it up, environmentally, that, like I said early on, the 14 acres of this property plus the 76 acres of the Mariner Point management area have actually functioned undisturbed for 35, 40 years as one ecosystem. And so you've got wetlands and other coastal properties in the Mariner Point area that then feed back up into the upland sandhill side of our property. And so it's one solid functioning ecosystem that serves a lot of critters and a lot of plants. One interesting thing too about the gopher tortoise that is worth saying is it's known as a keystone species because they go out and they dig holes, and then those holes become homes for 40 or 50 other species of animals that can't dig their own home.
Yeah.
And also, as the gopher tortoises dig in there, you'll find at the top of their burrows sometimes little artifacts of Indians.
Oh, wow.
So that's another thing that's unique to the property
Has
because
there
it was
been
so close to the coastal.
Has there been an archaeological survey done
There's
of the
not
property?
There's been, I
We had
wouldn't
an
call it archaeological.
we had an archaeologist review, but not an in-depth native artifact survey yet. Okay.
Right.
And that would be something would be worth doing after we meet the objective of actually raising the money to buy the property.
Yeah, and so then when you do, which hopefully y'all do, so when y'all do raise the funds to buy the property, the idea is to combine it with that 76 acres, correct?
We
will make sure that in the sale of the property, there is a deed that will keep this property as preservation property in perpetuity. So we plan to give it, and the county, Pinellas County has agreed to take over the maintenance of the property, which is a huge deal because we're not going to be in the business of maintaining property.
Yeah.
But we will make sure that Pinellas County at some later point in time doesn't decide that they want to turn around and sell it too, because we will deed it in such a way that it will always be a preserve.
And the county is who currently owns the 76 acres?
The county currently owns the 76.
And that is preserved in perpetuity as well, or is it they've just haven't done anything with it?
It's a preserve. Yeah. I don't know if it's deeded in perpetuity. So I don't want to say yes or no, but they do plan to keep it as a preserve at this point.
We haven't actually read the deed, but the county has told us that they can't do anything with it except keep it as a preserve. And we've had other outside folks who helped them create that preserve tell us the same thing. So that 76 acres should stay that way. Our 14 acres will be deeded to the county, and they'll either agree in writing to operate it as a part of the preserve or potentially to use it as a limited low-impact environmental park that people can see but still protect the species and the animals that are there, but give people a little more exposure to that ecosystem that's out there.
Yeah, and I think you said something on the radio about you guys are doing little trips out there to let people see the property, or like you're planning on doing that? Or?
Until we had the sales contract, the school board didn't really want us on the property. Now we have the sales contract, and they understand that we need to help bring people there to help build support. And so they've agreed to give us access to the property. We've got to be responsible about it. We've got to preserve the animals and make sure that we don't damage the property. But we are planning on having events out there where we can have people who are interested in supporting the preserve come out and get their hands dirty. And get
they won't be open events, though. They will be events where people have to have registered ahead of time, and we have to know, and it's a very limited number.
Absolutely.
I don't want to mislead people thinking that we're going to have an open house and anybody who wants to can come.
No, I don't think anyone who would want to preserve that would want to have 100 people out there trampling around, destroying everything.
You're right.
You know?
You're right.
But yeah, I do think it's good for people who are interested in helping out
yes,
to be able to go
and
see what they're helping.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's really powerful when you're actually out there in nature like that.
And we hope that, the weather cools down a little bit, makes it a little bit more pleasant.
Especially in those scrub areas, it can get real hot with no shade. And,
We have had 2 or 3 tours out there where we had Tampa Bay Times reporter Tracy McManus out there and her photographer, and they've looked around, they've recorded in photos some of what's going on out there. And it's interesting that after the articles were published that Tracy wrote, those ended up being waves of support for us through our donations and such. So we see the value in bringing people out and letting them actually get the feel for what they're trying to help.
Yeah, absolutely. So going forward, you were saying they're maybe potentially looking into making it into a low-impact park. So would it be just trails or I know you said something when I talked to you on the phone that in your Florida Communities Trust application, you guys had kind of drawn up potential plans for what that could look like.
That's right. With part of the rating criteria for the Florida Community Trust grant was giving public access. The other part that was important was having sponsorship from a county or a municipality. At the end of the process, we gave them a pretty good park, and the county had reviewed the plans for the park. So that is in the wings as a possibility. And we'll, as we get closer to actually saving the property, we'll start discussing what the purpose of the property is so that when we write up the documents for transfer and ownership, we actually include those conditions in there and we keep it focused on preserving and keeping the property where it needs to be for long-term interest as opposed to turning it into a boat ramp or something like that. Yeah.
Are you guys going to be having any fundraiser activities going on anytime soon? Any plans?
This coming Friday, we will be at Tarpon Springs First Friday. We'll have a booth there.
Oh, okay.
So anybody that's interested can come stop by our booth and learn more about it. An opportunity to donate if you want to, but really we're there mostly to spread the word.
All right.
Yeah. And Pinellas Community Foundation and we are planning a couple of fundraising events that when the weather gets a little cooler and we can enjoy the outdoors, we'll try to figure out how to do those in ways that we can attract a crowd, but also attract support.
Yeah.
And the Community Foundation, they've got a lot of experience in, they've done a lot of do-good work in other areas of poverty, hunger. If you look at what they've done, they've got a great track record. And so we're looking forward to putting their expertise in events and fundraising planning to work here in the next couple of months.
All right. I just lost my train of thought. I had another question for you, and now I cannot remember. Is there anything else that we haven't spoken about the property specifically that you think people should know? Well, I try to remember what I was going to say.
I think it's important for people to realize that if this property fails to be preserved, when they go in and they bulldoze it and take away the opportunity for these plants and animals, they won't get it back. And it will impact the Mariners Point management area because it does border that.
Yeah.
So, animals do not know a fence line. They don't understand. You can tell that by something coming in your yard. And so those that have a home in this area will have lost their homes.
Yeah.
I think it's also important for people to realize, a lot of people say, well, they do take the tortoises out and they put them someplace else. But if you look into that, a lot of those tortoises don't survive because the places that they're relocating them do not have enough food for them to survive. Yeah, so what you're really doing is taking them and putting them someplace where they can slowly starve to death. And that is more than cruel.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate that a lot of those places just aren't run the way they ought to be to actually preserve and protect these.
Right.
But yeah, and I mean, just from a fiscal standpoint, if you wanted to go in and develop that, I mean, it's going to cost so much because you do have to find and relocate every gopher tortoise. Like, I just don't understand why a developer would want to go through all those extra costs and all of that just to destroy a habitat.
It really doesn't make sense, does it?
Yeah.
We often look around in the county at the, call it the abandoned shopping centers and the other properties that are out there. And I have a history of construction work.
Okay.
I've done that all my life, Tim. It's so much easier to move on to a developed site and build something than it is to go in and bulldoze and create a new site. Yeah, I don't know why developers aren't doing that.
Yeah, especially in a county like Pinellas where we're so built out, like we really need to focus on redevelopment, not just further degradation of our... But so, all right, as far as funding goes, are you guys in the process of getting any other grant sources? I know that you guys withdrew your Florida Communities Trust application, but are you in the process of pursuing any other grants?
We are. We're actually trying to evaluate, and grant application process takes time, okay, and evaluation time. So we have, call it 11 months to fund the project. So we're looking at grant application work that will fund, get approval, and pay off within that time frame, or at least give us the creditability after that time frame to convince the school board that we'll be able to come through on the property. So we are pursuing additional grants. We brought in some folks. Well, we have folks who are already grant application writers and know that history, and we got a lot of practice on the Florida Community Trust grant because it was a thorough application.
Oh yeah, no, it's I've looked through that. That seems like a daunting process.
It is deep, but what we've also gotten is some support from the county grant folks and the city of Tarpon Springs grant folks who have said they want to come aboard and help us so that we would have access to perhaps federal funds or other funds that we
Okay,
wouldn't
like they would
necessarily
like sponsor you for the grant.
Exactly,
Right.
yeah.
So they're not gonna. They don't. The county isn't gonna directly help pay for any of the for the purchase, but they will help you with the grant process.
I would be dishonest if I didn't say we aren't going to ask.
Yeah.
Okay. We are going to ask, and it may be that after they resolve all of the Gladys Douglas.
Yeah, I know the Douglas property was ranked #1 by the Florida Community
Right.
Trust in their what
In
is
their
it?
evaluation
Yeah,
Their
process,
yeah.
evaluations, that's right.
It's not the final evaluation. They still have to go out to the 16 or so properties,
Right.
and the scores can be adjusted up or
Yep.
down. But yeah, so it does seem like they're going to get their 2.4 million, I think it was, from that.
2.4, that's
Plus,
correct.
they got a $1.5 million in the budget this year, just straight $1.5 million going back to the
Right.
county.
Right.
So hopefully, if that money isn't going directly to the Douglas property, it'll go back into the county's park funds to purchase and acquire more properties, and maybe
Yeah.
that'll free up some money
Yeah.
where they can help you all out.
We also
Right.
believe that if we've raised a significant amount of money, the county will be more approachable to help us close out and get to that last $250,000 that then kicks in the closing grant from Ephraimson.
Yeah.
And the county has said, we'll listen when you come ask,
Mhm.
but we're not going to promise anything yet.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of people that want a lot of different things preserved within
Amen.
the county, and they
Amen.
only have. I think they only had like before the Douglas money that they put out, they had like 10 million for 5 years for
Correct.
park purchases. So I
Yes.
mean, it's not a lot of money when there's so much out there that needs.
And that is something that people can do today, and we haven't actually touched that much on the political side of it. But on the political side, if people would contact their county commissioners and urge them to add more into the budgets for preservation, they're able to do that, and they have ways of making sure that they address the most urgent needs
And I
first.
think they're working on their budget right now. I
That's
think,
good.
yeah,
Yes, they are.
yeah.
And so this is a real good time if you know your county commissioner. Even if you don't, go ahead and send them a note and let them know that this is important to you
Yeah.
because they want your vote and they want to support what you want to support.
Yeah, and 10 million over 5 years is just grossly underfunded as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
But,
if I remember
Totally.
right, they have a list of potential property acquisitions, and we're on that list.
Yeah.
We're not at the top of that list, but potential property acquisitions, and it's close to 50 million.
yeah.
Okay, and so that's
And I see if they chose to make it a priority, they could find that 50 million and preserve them all. It's
right.
just a matter of what
They
their
need the
priorities
public
are.
to contact them and let them
Absolutely.
know that this is important to them.
Yeah.
And I'll say that the county and the city of Tarpon, one of the things that they recognize that WK Preservation Group is doing is we're trying to help bring in public support and private money to help them do what they need to do. So we can essentially help them leverage their budget
Yeah.
and do more good that way, as long as people can come on board for that.
Yeah.
There are an awful lot of people in the world who just say, let the government do it. But there are you get a lot more done if you say, how can I help the government do what it needs to do?
No, I mean, not to keep bringing up the Douglas property, but I think that was a perfect model for
Exactly.
how these things can be done.
Exactly.
Public, private, and state grant money, from every level, work
right.
together. And
No,
made
you don't
sure.
have to hate bringing it up. That was a good example.
No, it was-
and it came together very quickly and
Yeah.
very powerfully.
No, and it shows that if you get the community concerned about something, they really will rally together and do what it takes to. And
It's
hopefully,
possible.
yeah,
It's
absolutely.
definitely
It's-
possible.
And there's some real good people that Pinellas Community Foundation actually helped to bring into that party that then stepped up and made the major contributions.
Yeah.
And so PCF deserves some credit for that. And excuse me for giving them a little credit in this
No,
podcast.
absolutely. no, they do a great thing, and I don't know.
I will add, with respect to the urgency of what we're trying to do, it's hard for people to get excited about a 14-acre vacant lot. But when you start realizing that Pinellas County has been developed out to less than 2% of pristine property, and every 14 acres that's out there that gets destroyed is another chunk of that 2% that makes it go away completely. And I don't want to decry any particular locality, but I sure don't want to look like West Palm Beach.
No, for real though. It's. Oh man. No, I just finished reading this really interesting book called Swamp Peddlers.
Uh-huh.
That was just all about these whole communities just built with no infrastructure, no planning, just selling like $10 down, $10 a month, and you can own a piece of paradise. And
Yeah.
it's just swampland and nothing. And I don't know. Florida's development history is just crazy. But I think that people are finally like having enough of it and wanting to. I mean, even at the like in our state legislature, who hasn't always been the most environmentally friendly group of folks, but no, this year they really seem to step it up and prioritize preserving land. They $100 million to Florida Forever, another $300 million for other preservation and environmental projects. So it's again, I think it's once you get the people letting the politicians know that they care about this stuff and this is a priority,
makes a
they can
difference.
find the money. Like the money is there. You know?
And we need to wake up before it's too late.
Yeah, absolutely.
It takes, 50 to 100 years to grow these trees.
Mhm.
So it's not like, oh, well, I'll just plant a new tree. You're going to have to wait 50 to 100
Yeah.
years to get that.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't know. Thank you all very much for coming down and talking to us on the radio and then here on the podcast. I don't know. Is there anything else we can do to help your cause?
Ask us back in a couple of months and
All right.
check to see how we did.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
wanna
And we do
repeat-
thank you for
Yeah.
the opportunity.
I do want to repeat. It's www.wkpreserve.com.
Absolutely. And the Facebook group is, was it just
Save the West Klosterman Preserve.
All right, Save the West Klosterman Preserve on Facebook, wkpreserve.com. And
Hashtag save the WKP.
there you go.
And we actually have a new volunteer who's decided to create Instagram and Twitter accounts
Oh,
for
okay.
us.
Well, we'll keep an
So
eye
we're
out
getting
for
as
that.
social media as old people can ever get.
Hey, all right. Well, thank you all again, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tim.